3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Mondoid, your one-stop shop for all things Project Zomboid. And this week, human resources. Oh, shit, it's happening, guys. Oh, some of the worst parts of the game are being fixed. That's a little harsh, but some of the stuff I've been complaining about for probably a year plus is finally being addressed. And it's not because the developers are lazy and haven't addressed it. It's because they've had more pressing things to develop, obviously. But this week is all about one of the big things that I've talked about time and time again as I've played the game. And that is the career path. Now, if you go back, many episodes ago, you can even, God, I don't know, even a couple of seasons ago, hell, maybe even my very first thing, I talked about how the current career system is broken in a lot of ways. There's like very little reason to not pick one of two different professions, one of them being carpenter, which is the one I always picked, or construction worker, whatever you want to call it, because it came with a couple of neat traits, particularly thick-skinned. It was overpowered, and still is overpowered in my opinion, and made that particular class incredibly viable almost all the time, and there'd be no reason not to pick it. And they just felt a little underdeveloped and kind of placeholder in a lot of ways. And it has been said from the developers that they are indeed placeholder and they will get some love and attention in the near future. And this Mondoid talks all about how the careers and talent system is getting a complete overhaul. Everything you knew before, everything the way the game worked before when it came to careers, throw it out the window. It's totally different. Instead of picking a class and getting a couple of neat traits like, thick-skinned with carpenter, now things are going to work completely differently. So, for instance, construction worker will now start with something along the lines as of 3 skill in blunt and 1 in carpentry. Those little traits, I think, will be popping around. Security guard will still have night owl, and fire officer will still have axeman. And of course, none of this is final. You can take a look at a little bit more. When it gets closer to release, we could take a deeper look at it and see what the finalizations are. But now, because traits are so important, and they want the characters you pick to feel more like they had some sort of life pre-zombie apocalypse, classes, I'll call them classes for now, will start with skill points already built in. So, construction worker, my favorite one, is no longer just going to get thick-skinned. They're going to get 3 skill points in blunt and 1 in carpentry already, which means leveling up in those 2 skills is going to be easier for them because, think about it, he's been working with blunt tools, hammers, and all that stuff his whole life, and of course, he is a carpenter. And they do talk a little bit about a carpenter profession, which would start with 3 points in carpentry skill automatically, which is crazy useful. Very useful. But now, as you can see, picking your class is going to mean a whole lot more when you start up your game, because right away, you're immediately picking how you're going to end up playing the game, at least within the first couple of weeks, maybe it's a month of the in-game time. So if you want to play somebody who's maybe a bit better in the middle of nature, Park Ranger is actually finally fucking viable. They will have 2 in trap, 2 in forge, and 1 in carpentry. So they'll have a little bit of basic carpentry knowledge, but they'll be really good at foraging things from trees and stuff, as well as trapping wildlife. If you're going to try for a more city-oriented kind of survival, I think construction worker or police officer would be really useful. The police officer gets 3 in aim, 2 in reload, and 1 in nimble, which is great. The only problem with something like police officer, of course, is that guns are super rare. But when you do get a gun as a police officer, you're more deadly automatically than any other class in the game. So you'll have a harder time surviving solo for a while, but once you have a gun and some ammo, anybody, whether it be a player from multiplayer or a zombie in the world, would have a hard time getting anywhere near you because you're going to be able to shoot them way more effectively than any other class in the game. I mean, 3 in aim is ridiculously powerful. So you kind of have this risk-reward thing of picking the class and kind of decide how you're going to want to play. Moreover, when you play multiplayer, and especially if you're playing with friends, now picking your class can form a really neat party. So if I'm playing with 3 friends, maybe I'll go construction worker, my friend will go police officer, and then my other friend will end up picking this park ranger. So now we have somebody who can protect us, we have somebody who can trap and forage for us, and while the construction worker gets like a building and some basic defenses up and running. So you can kind of get these cool synergies that exist right out of the gate, as opposed to walking in as a blank slate, which is what all those classes ended up doing. Now, it's not to say the blank slate class doesn't exist. There is an unemployed person who starts with some skill points but has no skill on anything. It's a little bit of an interesting choice, because you get more skill points and stuff right away to pick neat traits and stuff as you normally would, because the trait system will continue to exist. But you're not going to be nearly as powerful as somebody that like this, who is going to start off, you know, with some bonuses from the way I can tell. The other thing that's being completely reworked is going to be traits. Traits have been neglected for a while, and it's another thing you've been able to cheese while we play the game solo or otherwise, because you've been able to take things that don't really matter, like light drinker or quick to anger. All that stuff is really cheesy traits that I've abused and plenty of people have abused, and for far too long have been abusing them, where basically it's a point buy system. If you want a good trait, it's going to cost you points. In order to get points, you have to take negative traits. So what people did was take the negative traits that don't affect you because NPCs aren't in the game, so on and so forth. So I would take light drinker and then just not drink ever, or quick to anger, or hot tempered and then never get angry because there's no NPCs to piss me off. And then I could just use those free points essentially to build a very, very powerful character. Those are getting removed. Not only are those getting removed, but all the traits that are in the game already are going to be getting reworked completely to do different things, and new traits are going to come in with new names and have different functionalities. As you can see down here, they talk about the trait revamp. So light drinker and other cheesable traits will be taken off. They've added a load of new traits. Names currently need some work, and our current internal build is staying that way for a bit, primarily because there's a lot of balance required in many of the OP-UP, which is overpowered, underpowered, and may need a nerfing or point value changes. Examples you can expect, however, include an adrenaline junkie. So the adrenaline junkie will be able to run faster when it gets to top panic level, which is actually, I find that very, very useful. A pack mule who can fit more into bags, which is awesome. Someone who's disorganized can cram less, etc., etc. Third, and most interestingly, to counter the fact that a profession only speeds up leveling and relevant skills, we now have a range of traits that act as hobbies. So, say your carpenter has green fingers in his pre-apocalypse life, for example. You'd pick the gardener trait, so that's kind of like a hobby, which would then give you a single point in farming. And while that wouldn't seem like a huge deal in itself, it would mean that they're now learning farming at 1x speed rate instead of the bargain basement level 0 of 0.33 times repeating speed. This then makes farming a viable skill to train up during a run. If you require a frame of reference, then think of Morrowind's minor major skills systems work, which is, you know, easier to figure out. So you got like self-defense class provides one blade guard point. I don't know why that was hard for me to figure out. First aid provides one doctor point, and this, that, and the other. So there are traits now that are going to give you a point in a skill and then makes gaining experience viable as opposed to it not being viable. So if you picked carpenter and then you didn't pick that trait, you wouldn't be learning gardening very fast. It's not something you would focus on. Very, very exciting. It's something that's been needed to be addressed. And again, this is a very quick overview of all of this. As always, I suggest you come to projectzomboid.com and come read the blog yourself so you get a much more in-depth understanding as to how this trait system is going to work. But to see this finally being addressed is really exciting for me, because this is all the necessary stuff that's running up to the 1.0, the official Steam release of 1.0. We're getting really close to it, and I say really close, obviously we're many months away still, but what this game has seen and what's been changed and everything over the course of the past year, you know, it's been a long time, and it really does feel like 1.0 is finally within sights, and this is really making it start to feel like a game. Not that it didn't feel like a game before, but a feature-complete game. And this is one of the big things that needed addressing, and to see it finally being addressed is, for me, really, really exciting, because it's something I've harped on so many times in the past, and I know the devs know it, and then I know the devs have heard me talk about it all the time, and I'm just glad to see it being taken care of. Other than that, they're talking about some more challenges to put in the last stand menu, so you can kind of do some stuff there, which is great. And then a really weird video that you might want to come check out. It's kind of hilarious. Oh, and the last thing, carpentry. So finally, in the new system we're testing, we've made it so the hammers at level 0 in carpentry can only build barricades. All carpentry recipes are going up one level, except for log walls. Sorry. So that sucks. That sucks a lot. But the more difficult, the more fun, in my opinion. And that's it. That's your Mondoid, a very exciting one. I'm so happy to see careers being addressed, as it's something that's been needing addressing for a long time. Again, I would suggest you come to projectzomboid.com, read it yourself, read all the changes that are coming in a more detailed fashion. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're a once-a-weeker, I'll see you next week. If you're a regular, I'll see you later today. And as always, I will see all of you next time. Bye-bye.